Welcome to Drive the Daf. Clear, structured explanation of the daily daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Sukkah Daf Nun Gimel is mostly Agadata. It's a wide-ranging Gemara discussing a lot of things from the Simchas Beis HaShoeva to the structure and the reasons and the creation of the Beis HaMikdash to a number of other statements which also appear in Pirkei Avos. And we shall begin. So the Gemara says that the light of the Simchas Beis HaShoeva we've seen in the Mishnah was very bright and it could be seen all over Yerushalayim. The Gemara says it wasn't just seen all over Yerushalayim, but a woman anywhere in Yerushalayim could sort grain by the light. It was that strong. Next, the Mishnah said that the tzaddikim and the Anshe Maaseh, the people of good deeds, they juggled and they danced during the Simchas Beis HaShoeva before the Kohanim and Levim who are going to draw the water. So the Gemara says, what was the songs that they sang? What did they sing? So the Gemara says, some of them, that's tzaddikim gemurim, said that happy is our youth when we were young, that it did not do anything to shame us now that we are old, meaning that they were tzaddikim all along and their youth was always okay. Now there were others who said happy is our old age, that it atoned for the mistakes that we made in our youth. Those were the Baalei Tshuva, became tzaddikim, and Baruch Hashem were able to atone for their mistakes that they made when they were young. Now both groups said Ashrei mi shalichato yashav yom chalai. Praiseworthy is he who never sinned, and somebody who did do averos should do tshuva and he will be forgiven. Now the Gemara quotes a brisa, a few statements of Hillel. Hillel says that by Simchas Beis HaShoeva he would say Emani kan hakol kan v'im eini kan mikan. If I am here, everyone's here, and if I'm not here, then who's here? The explanation of this given by Rishonim is that he's speaking for Hashem, and he's saying that if Hashem is there, meaning that if you're bringing Hashem into your simcha, then the simcha has validity. But if you're not going to bring Hashem to your simcha, not going to be a simcha shel mitzvah, then the entire celebration will fall apart and be empty and vacant. Another thing Hillel said, to the place that I like to go, that's where my feet lead me. If you come to my house, I'll come to your house. If you don't come to my house, I won't come to your house, like the pasuk says. Every place where you mention my name, I will come to you and I will bless you. Again, he's speaking for Hashem, and he was saying that if you come to my house, to the Beis HaMikdash, to be mispal, I'll come to your house to give you bracha. Now, another teaching of Hillel in the Mishnah, Hillel saw a skull floating in the water, and he said, because you drowned others, you were drowned, and those who drowned, you will be drowned themselves. Some Rishonim learned that he recognized the person who the skull was as a known murderer, and therefore he said, you're part of, because you got into this field, so it ended up doing you in. Now, as far as that which Hillel said, where my feet take me is where I love, so Rav Yochanan said a person's feet are his arevim, his guarantors. They make sure that he's going to end up where he needs to go, meaning the place where he needs to be when the Malach HaMavis comes to gather him in, his feet will make sure to take him there. The Gemara quotes a story that brings that out. The Gemara says that there were two kushim, who worked for Shlomo HaMelech. Their names were Elichoref and Achia, and they were both the sons of Shisha, and they were both scribes. They used to write things. They are mentioned in the pasuk in Malachim. So one day Shlomo HaMelech met the Malach HaMavis, the angel of death, and he saw that he was upset. So he said, what are you angry about? So he said, because these two kushim, I'm supposed to take them, and I'm not able. So Shlomo HaMelech heard that the Malach HaMavis was pursuing his two workers, so he gave them to the control of certain demons, the Shadim, that they should transport them quickly to a place called Luz. In Luz, the Malach HaMavis was not able to kill anybody, and the demons were able to move them there quickly, so he sent them there. But as soon as they arrived at the gates, the Malach HaMavis himself was waiting for them, and right there at the gates, he killed them. So the next day, Shlomo HaMelech saw that he was happy. So Shlomo said, why are you so happy? So he said, because the reason I couldn't kill those two people was because they had to be killed, or the orders were they should be killed at the gates of Luz, and I couldn't figure out how to get them there. But you sent them, and therefore, thanks to you, I was able to do my job properly. So Shlomo HaMelech opened his mouth and he said, a person's feet are his arevim, wherever he's supposed to go, that is where they are going to take him. Now, back to the discussion of Simchas Beis HaShoeva, the Gemara says, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel would celebrate, and he would take 8 flaming torches and he would juggle them, and they never touched each other. Also, another thing that he did is when he bowed down on the ground in the Beis Hamikdash, he would hold himself up in the air only on his thumbs. His thumbs were the only things holding him. And then he would lean and kiss the floor, and then he would stand up. And from that position, now there was nobody else who was able to do that feat, to be able to hold himself up only by his thumbs, and this type of bowing is called Kida. The Gemara says that Levi once did Kida in front of Rebbe, and he became lame because of it. The Gemara says, is it true that's why he became lame? We have a different Gemara that says he became lame because he spoke disrespectfully to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He was being mispal for rain, and he said, you better bring rain, in a very disrespectful way, and therefore he was punished by becoming lame. So the Gemara says, yes, he was punished because of that, but it only happened when he was in a vulnerable position, because that, when you're in a vulnerable position, you're in a place of sakana, that is where the punishments can catch up to you. Now the Gemara says that Levi used to juggle before Rebbe with 8 knives. Shmuel juggled in front of King Shapur with 8 glasses of wine without spilling them. Abaya juggled in front of Rabbah. Some say with 8 eggs, and some say with 4 eggs. Okay, that's many other Talmidei Chachamim who were able to juggle and used it as a skill to cheer people up. Now the Gemara goes back to Raisa Baschal Beis Sheva. Shua ben Chananya says, when we would be rejoicing at the Simchas Beis Sheva, we would not sleep throughout the entire Yontif. Why not? Because early in the morning, as soon as the sun rose, we got up and we brought the carbon Tamid Shel Shachris, right? From there we went to Shul in order to daven Shachris. From there we went to do the carbon Musaf. Then we did Tfilas Musaf. And then we went to the Beis Medrash to learn. Then we went to the Yontif Suda. Then we went to daven Mincha. And then we went for the Tamid Shel Abein HaRabayim. And then it was Simchas Beis Sheva all the way until the morning. So we never got a chance to sleep for the entire Yontif. So the Gemara says it's not possible to not sleep for an entire Yontif. You have a halacha that if somebody says I'm not going to sleep for 3 days, it's an impossible shavua. It's already a false shavua. You can give him a malchus on the spot, and then he's allowed to go to sleep, but doesn't have to try to keep the shavua, because it's a null and void shavua. It's impossible to not sleep for 3 whole days. So Gemara says, no, what he meant to say, or Rabbi Yeshua meant to say, was that we didn't have a proper sleep. We would fall asleep standing up, perhaps, leaning on each other's shoulders, but it's not that we didn't sleep at all. Okay, now referring back to the Mishnah had said that there are 15 steps that lead down from the Ezras Yisrael to Ezras Nashim in the Beis Hamikdash, and they correspond to the 15 Prakim and Tehillim that are called Shir HaMalis. So the Gemara says, what is the story behind these 15 Shir HaMalis, and where do they come from? The Gemara quotes of Chizda, who had a Rebbe who used to teach him Agadata. So Chizda said, can you tell me about these 15 Shir HaMalis? What are they for? So he said it's like this. When David HaMelech was preparing the foundations for the Beis Hamikdash, he excavated the shisin, the deep holes into which the nesachim that's poured on the Mizbeach will flow. We've seen in the Gemara earlier that it was there from Sheshis Yimei Bereshis, but perhaps this Tana disagrees, or perhaps it was the holes existed but they had to be cleared out. Either way, he was working there, and the waters from deep down inside the earth came up and threatened to flood the entire world. So David said 15 Shir HaMalos, and they all went down. So Rabbi Chizda said then it wasn't Shir HaMalos, it was Shir HaYardos. It wasn't a song of coming up, it was a song of going down. So he said, yes, you're right. You're reminding me how the story went actually. Really what was that the water started coming up, and David was trying to figure out a way to get it to go back down, and he knew that if he puts a Shem Hashem on a piece of charas and throws it in, it'll make the water go down, but it possibly will erase the Shem Hashem. So his question was, are you allowed to do that? Now the Rishonim here explained that there was a charas there before. There was a piece of pottery there when he dug the hole in the first place, and the pottery was keeping the water down. And it said to David, don't take me away or the water is going to flood, but he took him away anyway. The problem was he needed to write the Shem Hashem in order to get it to go back to the right spot. But either way, so you have here, he was asking, does anybody know the answer to this? So nobody answered him. So he said, if anybody knows the answer and he doesn't say anything, you better talk up now, because otherwise he's going to be choked in his throat. So Achitophel spoke up and he said, look, there's a Kal V'chomer. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu allows his name to be erased in order to make peace between a man and his wife, that's in the Parsha of Saita, where we erase the entire Parsha containing Hashem's name into water to make the Saita water. So certainly he will allow his name to be erased in order to make peace for the whole world. So upon hearing that, he wrote the name on a piece of cheres, he threw it in, and the water went down, 16,000 amos down into the ground. Now that was too far away. So David then had to make the water come up again, so he said 15 she'ar amos. Each time he said a she'ar amos, the water came up 1,000 amos until it settled at 1,000 amos below the surface. So Gemara says, you see from here that the water of the deep is 1,000 amos below the surface of the earth. That's not true. If you dig in the mountains a little bit, you'll find water. There's water there. It's not 1,000 amos. So Gemara says, no, that's different water. That comes from the Nahar Paras water table. That's the underground aquifer that feeds the rivers. That's not deep underground water. That's a totally different thing. And that's not what we are referring to. Okay. Now we refer back to the Mishnah where we said that Kahanim stood by the gate and they blew a tekiah when they got to the 10th step. The Gemara says, this 10th from the top of the 15 steps, counting from top or counting from bottom? Where it says, Teku, we do not know the answer to that question. Okay, next we said that when they reached the entrance, they quoted the pasuk in the Navi Yecheskel that said that people used to stand there and bow to the sun and stick out their backs to the Heichel. So the Gemara quotes the Brisa, which we've seen earlier, that if they bent forward, if they faced to the east, obviously their backs are facing the west, so I don't need to say that. But it means to say that they expose themselves and they relieve themselves in a very disgusting manner, insultingly towards the Heichel. Okay, now the Gemara continues. We've seen in the Mishnah that we say Anu L'ka Einenu. So Gemara says, how are you allowed to repeat Hashem's name like that? We know you're not allowed to do that. Anybody who says Shema Shema or says Moedim sounds like he's talking to two spiritual forces. That Chas v'Shalom indicates that there's some sort of duality in control of the universe. We know that that's not true. So Gemara says no, so it wasn't the full thing. He didn't just say L'ka. It was clear. It was two sentences and two different thoughts. He said like this: Hema mishtachim v'kedma v'anu l'ka mishtachavim v'einenu l'ka miyachalos. They bowed eastward to the sun, but we bow to Hashem, and our eyes are to Hashem expectantly. Okay, now we get to the next Mishnah. The Mishnah now begins by describing the blowing of trumpets in the Beis Hamikdash each day of the year, and it's going to have two opinions as to how many were blown. So let's see the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that every day there was no less than 21 trumpet blowings and never more than 48. How does it work? So this Tana holds that every trumpet blowing was 3 in 1. It was tekiah, teruah, tekiah, those all went together. And therefore it was as follows. One set of 3 was for the opening of the gates. 3 times during the Tamid Shel Shachris and during the Tamid Shel Ben Harabayim there was blowing. 3 times each, that's 9 for each, is 9 and 9 is 18. Plus the 3 opening the gates is a total of 21. Now, on the days when there's Musaf, there was another 9. Another 3 sets of 3 as part of the Karban Musaf. So that takes us on Musaf days to a total of 30. If it was Erev Shabbos, it was on a Friday, they added another 6. 3 to tell people to stop working, and 3 to show that Shabbos is arriving. That takes us to 36. And if it was a Shabbos and it was on Sukkot, then there was another 12. As part of the Simchas Beis She'eva, 3 opening the gates, as we've seen before, 3 for the upper gate, 3 for the lower gate, 3 for filling up the water, 3 at the side of the Mizbeach, those are the extra 12, and the rest is the same as before, 9 for the Tamid Shel Shachris, 9 for the Tamid Shel Ben Harabayim, 9 for the Musaf, and 3 to have people stop working, and 3 to actually introduce the introduction to announce the arrival of Shabbos. So this Mishnah concludes here. The Gemara now is going to introduce the Machlokas. The Gemara says this Mishnah doesn't go like Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda says that there were 7 blasts as the minimum and 16 as the maximum. Now his numbers are 1/3 of the numbers before. The Mishnah said 21 and 48. He says 7 and 16. So the Gemara says that what they're arguing about is, do you count the tekiah, teruah, tekiah as 1? Or do you count it as 3? Rabbi Yehuda is counting it as 1, and therefore he says it's only 7 and 16. Our Tana is counting it as 3 separate ones. Now the Gemara analyzes this machlokas and the source and what they each do with each other's sources. So what's Rabbi Yehuda's source? So he says, if you look at the Pesukim, it says, Usikatem teruah. Uterua yisko. Different places it refers to tekiya as a terua or a terua as a tekiya. So that shows that it's really the same thing. Tekiya, terua, tekiya, it's all the same. And therefore it's all counted as one. Now, what do the Chachamim do with that? So the Gemara says that is just to teach you that you're supposed to blow a tekiya before and after every terua. It says usikatem terua, first a tekiya, then a terua. And then it says terua yisko, after every terua you should have a tekiya. So that's all that's for. But it's not coming to say that it's all one. Where does Rabbi Yehuda learn that halacha from? So the Gemara says he learns it from the fact that it says uskatem terua shenis. That means uskatem terua teaches that you first blow tekiya, then terua. Shenis teaches that you blow another tekiya afterwards. But that where it says terua yisko, the other way around, that is to teach you that terua and tekiya are actually the same thing. You don't need that because you have the word shenis, which takes the place of saying that there's a tekiya after the terua. Now, what's the source for the Chachamim? How do they know that there are three separate mitzvahs? So when it says, because you have a pasuk that says, when you gather the people together, you blow only a tekiya and not a terua. So you see that there are two separate things, because otherwise you wouldn't split up the mitzvah. So that was when you were calling Kal Yisrael to a meeting. So the Gemara says, now Rabbi Yehuda will say that that's not a mitzvah. That wasn't a mitzvah of blowing. That was just a signal. So what the signal would be is just a terua or just a tekiya. But the mitzvah itself is always the set of three, and therefore it's one mitzvah. It only counts as one. So the Gemara says, and the Chachamim would reject that because the Chachamim would say that the siman is a mitzvah. The Torah has made it into a mitzvah. That's why, even though it's a signal, it still shows that it has to be viewed as one mitzvah altogether. Now, the Gemara asks, who does Rav Kahana hold? Rav Kahana says that there was no pause between the tekiya and the terua. It all has to be together. So Gemara says, well, that's like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says that it's all one thing, so of course it has to be together. So Gemara says, obviously, why do I need you to tell me that? So Gemara says, no, you might think that when he says it has to be all together, he's going according to the Chachamim who say that it's three separate things. He just means to say that it shouldn't be so far apart like Rav Yochanan said. Rav Yochanan said if you heard 9 different hours of the day, 9 different tekiyas, hours and hours apart, that's okay. Good, Rav Kahana is saying that's not true, but he's not going all the way like Rav Yehuda. He's just going like the Chachamim and saying that they should all be done together, but not to say that's one mitzvah and you can't have a pause at all. The Gemara says, how do you know that's what he means? So the Gemara says no, because if you look at his language, he says that there's no pause at all. It says v'loy klum. Loy klum, not at all. That means not even a moment. It has to go straight through. So that's like...
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.